Good morning, Taren.
Good morning, Jason.
How are you today?
I'm good. I just want to reiterate what an honor it is for you to have me on your podcast.
Flattery will get you everywhere at the very top of the episode. Thank you. And I want to, background before I will have Taren, before I have you introduce yourself for the audience. I've been talking about having Taren on for, I don't know, maybe almost a year since I came up with this. And she finally said yes, because she's been that busy with her schedule doing all these other amazing things. So thank you for making the time here. It is Monday, December 7th, 2020. And with that, let's get into it. So Taren, love if you would introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, where in the world you are, what you do, what you like, what you don't like. We'll probably shy away from politics unless you really feel the need to turn off half the audience, but you do you, girl. So Taren, good to have you on.
Yeah, thanks. I'll not address the 47 million people who I maybe don't identify with politically, but some of those people are members of my own family, so I don't want to completely shut them out. Well, my name is Scary Sterry, and I'm a coach, and I live in Durham, North Carolina. And my company is called Big Time Coaching. I run it with my partner, Dr. Tim Merrick. I got 2 dogs. I was Zooming long before the pandemic hit. And, I teach improv, and I'm obsessed with adults who are terrified and love working with people in a lot of fear and pain. And, it's makes for a great life.
That's pretty fantastic. Working with people that are insane. Yeah, that's my experience with you. That's great. Yeah, so we get into what you like. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been my thing. As I look at my career trajectory, is that I've always been attracted to things that scare me and scare others. And, improv and hospice and public speaking and, creating our lives the way we want, and relationships and, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of where I always lean into, and coaching always fits into that.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm sure we'll dig in deep on that as one coach to another. So let's get right into it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're ready. So you're an improv person, so this is probably not a big deal for you to come on a podcast and talk about stuff.
Well, not your podcast, Jason.
Well, that's true. I mean if you're on Dax Shepard's podcast or Joe Rogan or something, or Mark Maron maybe, or Brene Brown. But yeah, just my little podcast. It is. I do want to say something that's really funny, and I think you'll appreciate this. And if it's not obvious, Taren and I know each other pretty well outside of the podcast. What's funny is, I send a list of the questions out to the guests ahead of time, and you can so tell by people's by how they respond, what the personality is. Some people be like, yeah, I don't really look at them. Other people they'll ask me 14 questions about the questions of so when you do this and do this, and they need to know all the details, versus some people are like, yeah, thanks. I'll probably just show up and just ask me, I don't have anything prepared. And I find it interesting, how people's minds work that way in terms of preparation or not, or I don't know if it's a confidence thing or just some people are very good just talking and other people really like to be scripted.
Well, Jason, and I know that you know this, that life is unscripted. So even as we can prepare ourselves to look good and say good things and be prepared, which is not a bad thing. It's actually something I do when I help people prepare for interviews and stuff. You don't want to walk into things totally unprepared.
Yeah.
That trying to follow a script in a live conversation or in life usually doesn't go so well unless you're auditioning for Broadway. You're always in an unscripted conversation because and public speaking is anything that doesn't happen inside of your own head or inside of your own home. The second you walk outside the door, you are doing public speaking, whether it's conversationally in the elevator, even though we don't take elevators or talk in elevators anymore. But
Definitely don't talk in elevators at the very least.
We're not even doing any public speaking anymore. I'm wearing a mask on the phone right now. That being able to trust yourself to be in a line by line conversation with someone, just by being yourself and trusting that the words in the conversation will come is much more easy than trying to get it right and sound good or look good.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool. Well, I am going to ask you the first question.
Oh, great.
So, Taren, what is something that you nerd out about?
I considered this question, Jason.
You prepared for this question. That's what you're saying.
I considered it, Jason.
Considered it. Okay.
I considered it. And, it's funny because what it made me realize is that I'm not a details person. And I'm a big picture person. So I'm always looking at like the larger space or putting it all together. And the one thing I felt like I do nerd out on is The Wire.
Mm-hmm.
The
are you talking about the show? Oh God,
yeah.
Yes. Oh, it's my top 2 shows of all time for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I just rewatched all 5 seasons for the 6th time.
Wow.
And I watched it. I know. I watched it with Tim, and it took me 4 seasons of watching that to really get all of it.
Yeah.
And he got it all on the first take. He watched it. But at the end of every episode, I was like, okay, so what questions do you have for me about Omar Little? Because I fully understand him and I can prep you for what's to come, or we can talk about what might be confusing for you. And he was like, no, I don't have questions for you about this.
This is such a perfect relationship thing of like assuming like you're not quite smart enough to get this. He's like, nah, I think I get it.
Yeah, and he did. He would like say, "No, I get it. He's going to try to do this, but they have this conflicting thing, and then that's going to create this." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, all right then. Let me know if you have questions because I'm happy to answer them for you."
I understand. I heard that you nerd out on The Wire, but do you also nerd out on pandering to Tim about shows that he probably understands without you having to tell him?
We have very different tastes in television.
Okay.
He likes romantic comedies. He likes dramas. I like good, fast writing. And I because I got my start in hospice care, and I always had this, like my day-to-day life for 15 years was dramatic enough with real life stories of families and death and, all of it. Like my own life was dramatic enough that any TV show kind of paled in comparison to, the drama I thought real life was. So I tend to go for well-written, what was that one Mississippi, the Tig Notaro show. I watched that.
Never saw it
recently. No. And she's so dry, and I thought the writing was so clever. But yeah, that's what I would say I nerd out on the most was The Wire.
Yeah. Who's your favorite character?
Omar Little.
Omar Little. Omar's creeping.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael K. Williams. Yeah. He's even better than Omar Little because his life story is incredible, and he's an incredible human being, and he's one of those people who had no money, no hope, took a chance on himself. Somebody reached out a hand to him. He took it and he went high again and then low again and then came back. Like his life story is absolutely incredible. And so I'm obsessed with him and his characters.
Yeah. I don't know anything about him personally. I've obviously seen him in a lot of stuff. Like I think he was in he was in The Night Of. I don't know if you saw that. and he was in Boardwalk Empire, wasn't he?
Yep.
Or am I making that up?
Yep. He was in The Sopranos, and and he's amazing. So I guess maybe I nerd out on actors whose lives I also really admire.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Last question for you about The Wire, because I'm a huge fan. I've seen it twice. I saw it probably in like 2010, and then I watched it again maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, the whole thing. What's your favorite season?
Gosh, it's probably the 5th one.
That's the Baltimore Sun.
Yeah. And because you think McNulty is out in season 4 because he downgrades his position in the police force, but then he comes full back and just goes absolutely nuts. And the whole 5th season is about, hey, nothing ever changes.
That's right.
And the young characters assume the roles of the older characters, but there's a kind of a beautiful a way that they do it where everything stays the same and nothing changes, and yet everything is changed. So circle of life. It's the circle of life. That's very very. It was satisfying.
Elton John of you.
I was satisfying.
Yeah, it's such a. Yeah, like that's how it ends, right? They're like standing over on the highway and they're like looking over downtown Baltimore, and then it ends. And you're like, yes,
city ain't going nowhere.
City ain't going anywhere. Cool. Well, I could spend the hour talking about The Wire, but I think people would tune out pretty quickly unless they really love The Wire. I think they're more interested in who you are, Taren, than just talking about The Wire for an hour.
Yeah.
And all
trigger
the
warning.
Nuances.
Trigger warning.
Exactly.
Wire trigger warning. We will revisit.
All right. Next question for you. We're talking about your comfort zone. And I want to hear about something that is inside of your comfort zone that might be so outside of somebody else's. And I'm going to caveat this for you. You cannot say doing improv. You cannot say public speaking because it's just too easy. And as we get into like who you are and what you're up to in the world and what you have been up to in the world, what is something that's outside of public speaking and improv that is inside of your comfort zone that is outside of somebody else's?
Talking about The Wire.
Okay, next question. Can you imagine somebody's like, can you imagine if somebody come on, they're like, I love The Wire, but I'm really uncomfortable talking about it. It's just not something I can do.
Oh, now I understand your question. Thank you for that clarification. I think what's inside my comfort zone is pissing people off, but with a lot of love.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't mind saying the thing that I know might really get under someone's skin, but there's a difference between like not caring what they think and, brutal honesty, which I don't think is a thing. But as a coach, like we have to be able to say things that potentially upset people, but we also have to say it from a place of, love and care and, like saying it because we think it's the thing that they need to hear or the thing that we're hearing. And so I've gotten more and more comfortable doing that and then letting people be with whatever that thing is. And, I did this a lot with my family and, I've done this with friendships and, but I'm comfortable rocking boats, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that is definitely something that is outside a lot of people's comfort zones, including me, because, and, like I've shared on the show before, I'm a Midwestern guy and the culture I grew up in is very, very people pleasing. So the idea that people would be upset with you is that's not something we do. We are very nice publicly, and then behind closed doors, like from Minnesota, they call it Minnesota nice. Yeah, and I think where you're from, you maybe have heard of that statement before, but it's like you're really nice to everybody. And then behind closed doors, there's a lot of passive aggressiveness that goes on. And,
Yeah.
so I get that. I am also working on that in both my coaching and in my, my relationships. And there's something interesting that is part of the reason Taren and I know each other. We're both coaches. We know each other through a specific community. And one of the things that we talk about that I really agree with is inside of a relationship, you can clean up almost anything. I really actually do believe that. Yeah. So to your point with clients, say you work with them for how many sessions or friendships, and you're like, hey, like I want to give you this thing and I think it's going to make you uncomfortable. Maybe you don't even caveat it, but likely you can always come back from it. And if you can't, then the relationship probably wasn't there in the first place.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like life is a series of, coming together and coming apart and aligning and then misaligning. And, I can't look back on any time that I've had a misunderstanding with someone where the result wasn't more understanding over time. That over time you come to have a bigger understanding, if not about the misunderstanding, but about yourself and how what you want and how you communicate. And so I've never, I think what's comfortable for me is getting more and more comfortable with anybody's feelings about me or what's happened, and really trusting that if I am doing it because I love them, I care about them, I want something for them, I'm not afraid to say what I see, even though it may not be pretty, or share something that might hurt, that I trust human beings to be able to be with hurt and pain and work ourselves through. And I don't like to treat people as fragile and think that they can't, that, like you said, in a relationship, that we can't handle this. And working stuff through, like, that's usually the thing that makes relationships stronger. And you don't get to bigger levels of understanding without having some. You don't make an omelet without cracking some eggs.
I've heard that before. Yeah, that's cool.
Unless you are allergic to eggs, then you have an omelet poured out of a carton, and
that's a whole different conversation. And now Taren's going to give us some vegan cooking tips. And this is how you actually do that.
Isn't life like that? Everything comes back to, some pithy thing that you heard from an old man.
Maybe.
Something you heard on a park bench in New York.
That was very, that was actually very McNulty of you. That sounds like something McNulty would say. He had always had those pithy, like, sayings when he was drunk, or when he'd always had like something interesting to say. There you go.
Yeah,
you're channeling your inner Dominic Wiest. Like Dominic Wiest.
Oh, well, we will not stop talking about The Wire in this entire call.
You've set us up for a lot of success / potential failure here. And that's, I'm willing to play into it. All right. So the reverse of that question is something that might be outside of your comfort zone, Taren, that is inside of somebody else's.
Oh, I'm not a skilled person. Like there are people who are technically proficient in things like cooking or in instruments or fidgeting with things or fixing things, painting, like, I don't know, like a paint by numbers kind of thing. Like I'm more like I want to walk into a space and, experience it. So people who are really good at getting into the details of things, that to me is like, even something like chopping an onion for me is uncomfortable, because I just take the knife and I just start slashing. And then if I'm working with somebody in the kitchen who wants it done a certain way, they start freaking out because the onion is not diced. Yeah. And I'm more like, hey, I want to have an experience of a knife, and I want to feel the chop, and it all goes into your mouth anyway. So what does it matter if they're all of equal proportion and size?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have no interest in learning skills like that. So I would say skills like that are outside my comfort zone.
Is your partner Tim, is he like that? Is he similar to you in that, or is he the opposite? He is similar to you like that.
No, he's the opposite.
He's the opposite. That makes sense.
Yeah, he can learn anything. He's remodeling our home right now. So he already knows a lot about construction, and what he doesn't know, he teaches himself and then does it. And, he can play the guitar, and he can cook, and he can fix things. So it's in our relationship, as I watch him, I'm become acutely aware of, one, how good he is at those things. And then two, how little interest I still have in acquiring technical skills.
Sounds like you found a great match.
It works.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, that sounds awesome. Like there's nothing better. Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, if I lost my phone and someone found it, and they had to figure out who I was simply by the photos on my phone, they would know two things. One, I love my dogs. Yeah. And two, I can't take a good picture to save my life. So even in something like framing a photograph with good light and learning how to do that, manipulate that on your phone is something that's uncomfortable for me. I'm like, well, can't you just shoot it? Isn't that what photography is? Point and shoot.
All the photographers are like, how dare you?
Yep. Bye-bye, photographers. Yeah. I know you're tuning out.
They're like, if you don't like The Wire, if you like The Wire and you're a photographer, you're probably gone as of right now. Like, who is this Taren person?
Yeah, I miss them. They're gone, and I miss them.
Yeah, see ya. Well, okay, that's a good one. I think based on what you do for all the different stuff you're up to, like, and we'll talk more about being an actress and a comedian and professional improv person and also a coach. Like, feel like all of those professions really lend themselves well to you not needing to be that technical in like the technical, like in the technical way, because you get to like actually have a canvas to just kind of show up and do some stuff with, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as long as I can click on the Zoom link and get into the meeting, that's about the technical proficiency that's required for the job. So,
right.
So I think it's all working out.
There you go. That's awesome. All right, let's move along to something that I think you are technically proficient at. So I'm going to call you out on something. I believe that you do a lot of public speaking, which you could argue in some ways is a very technical thing to do. Like, yes, you're probably somebody like me, like to go off script and just kind of like perform it, but I'll bet you know the technical part of it because you teach it. So I'm gonna say, there might be something there, but we won't go into that for now. But I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to deliver a speech to the entire world, Taren. And oh my God. I feel like I have to caveat this because I had a guest who's like, so is there like, do they all speak my language, or is this like on Zoom? And I'm like, it's just a made up scenario that everybody in the world is going to hear what you have to say. So forget the technical part, which is perfect for you because you probably don't care. What would you give your speech on? In other words, what would you want to share to the world from your mind and your heart, and why?
Oh, well, it's interesting that you're talking about the technical piece of public speaking, because I had a one-woman show that it was about my experience in hospice, and it was incredibly technical. So it was a 1-hour show called 180 Days. It was about my first 6 months working in hospice care. And I toured it across the country for different hospices and theaters. The biggest show I did was for 2,000 people in San Diego at the National Convention. And it was an hour on stage with lights and music, and it had sound tech. We would run hours and hours of tech rehearsals for the show because there was no improvisation, maybe a few moments in the show with the audience, but it was 100% scripted from beginning to end. And so, I haven't done it for a few years, so maybe I'm actually forgetting that I'm actually quite skilled. I take that entire last question about all the technical skills back, because in this moment, Jason, I'm realizing that I'm actually incredibly technically proficient. Scrap this entire interview till now. I hate The Wire. So, what I would say about that is that there are technical aspects to public speaking, like eye contact, movements, letting people see you. There's, the open body language. There are technical aspects to that, but more so, it's just, does the audience want to listen to you? And why would I want to listen to any person who's up on a stage? It's because I actually feel that they care about and are convicted in what they're talking about. And that's it. And so if I feel that they care about and are convicted about what their message is, I don't care if they make eye contact with me. I don't care that their hand movements are awkward. I don't care that they make a verbal mistake. I care because I'm like, oh, you care. And because I can feel how much you're interested in what you're saying, that makes me interested. So I think where people get caught up in public speaking or presenting things is that they are trying to perform and they're trying to look good or concerned about how they're coming across. And it's a paradox, because people are most interested in you when you don't care about that thing. It's really when you care about what you're speaking about, and then it's effortless, because then it just then you're just talking about what you care about, and everybody wants to listen because they care.
Yeah, that's super cool. That is super cool.
I would say, so for people, it's really about figuring out what you care about and then not caring about how that comes across.
For those listening, it's just that simple. Figure out what you care about and then don't care. And if you can do that, you're set.
Exactly. And then start a podcast called Talking to Both Caring and Non-Caring
People.
Yeah. And run it opposite a podcast called Talking to Cool People.
Exactly.
Who aren't really that cool.
Exactly. Do you watch, I don't remember, do you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I've episodically. And that does not mean episode by episode. That means
you just reminded me of something. Yeah, you just reminded me from this. Did you see any of the last season at all?
I didn't.
So there's a recurring character called Mocha Joe. He's from like season 7. And him and Larry got into it because, of course, they got into it. And he's back this season, and he opens a coffee shop and he pisses Larry off. So he literally opens a coffee shop right next door and he calls it his spite store. and he calls it Latte Larry's. And I won't spoil the end of the season in case you ever watch, or people that don't watch it, but it's hilarious. So I'm thinking you could start a spite podcast, like the anti-podcast. That'd be so good, a spite podcast.
Not talking to uncool people.
Exactly. And just be like, this is the exact opposite thing of this thing. And you're going to love it because you hate this thing.
It's an hour of silent meditation.
On a podcast. You like tune in each week as there's dead air for 1 hour. It's amazing. I like it. I might have to go buy that domain so you can't come in over the top of me on that one. All right. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back after this, Taren.
The Talking to Cool People podcast is brought to you by Jason Frizzell Coaching. Jason works with amazing people who are looking to find and develop their passion and purpose and create their journey to wherever it is they want to go. Check us out at jasonfrizzell.com, Facebook, or on Instagram. Jason loves hearing from anyone who thinks it would be cool to connect, to be coached, or to be a guest on our show. Email him at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com or DM him on Facebook and Instagram. And now, back to some more amazing conversation on Talking to Cool People.
Okay.
All right, Taren, we are back. And so this is the part of the show where I like to have my guest talk about what they've been up to and what you're up to now. So I just want to list off some of the things that you've shared with us already. We're not going to talk about The Wire, although I'm going to use the word wire. It's like a game now. We have to use wire every other sentence. But so you mentioned earlier that you spent a lot of time in the healthcare industry, specific in hospice care. You mentioned that you do improv and teach improv, and you mentioned that you're a coach. So I think there's an interesting journey there to spend maybe 10 or 15 minutes on, however long you'd like to spend with us on it. So Taren, I'd love to hear for myself and for the audience, just, like how that all came about and what you're up to today.
Oh, well, the way it all got started for me was in at the University of California at Santa Cruz, where I went to school. It's my alma mater. And I signed up for a class called the Sociology of Death and Dying. And the teacher of the class was this hippie lady with long black and white flowing hair, and she wore yoga pants to classes, and she was just free and easy and brilliant. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be her. So I started taking all of her classes, and the death and dying class just really stuck. And I wasn't quite sure why. But we watched.
Can I ask you? Sorry, I was going to. Yeah. Is it there's something I have to.
Don't interrupt me again, Jason. Don't interrupt.
Oh boy, now this is going to go really downhill quickly. I have two things. I
had this prepared.
I had my 8 pages of notes typed out, and now you're taking me off my course after all of that. No, I have two things. It just hit me, and I'm
very uncool. Very uncool.
I know, it is very uncool. That is the best mascot in all of college, the Banana Slugs. Banana Slug, so good. The University of California, Santa Cruz Banana Slug. When you said it, I'm like, oh, wait, is that the Banana Slugs? I'm like, it is, I think. It's a Banana Slug. So I wanted to say that first. The second thing I wanted to say, I wanted to ask you about that class. Was it like a philosophy class, or what was the umbrella it was underneath? Was it medical? Was it philosophy? Was it psychology? Where would that land inside of college education?
Yeah, it was a sociology class, and my major was something that is no longer even a major at that college anymore, because it was so far out that they had to disband it a few years ago. The major was called community studies. Okay. And they built this major around a 6-month ethnographic field study, which I ended up going and doing in South Dakota for 6 months, and which is where I based the play 180 Days that I toured later on.
Yeah.
But it was sociologically based. So, and it was at UC Santa Cruz. So it was a very liberal take on all things death and dying. So we looked at some Tuesdays with Maury. We looked at funerals. We looked at death rites. We looked at spiritual philosophies on death, cross-cultural takes on it. So it was a very broad swipe on the whole topic. And the banana slug thing is real. My first day of registration, walking through the campus, I came across an 8-inch electric green banana slug. They are real.
8 inches?
They are there. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Those suckers are big, and they're real.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Banana slugs and dying.
Yep. So I became obsessed with the topic, and I thought, this is it. This is what I want to do. And the progression into hospice care came from there, because that's the industry of, other than funerals or ambulance chasing or, sudden death, or dealing with people who are dealing with sudden death. If you're dealing with, expected death, then you're talking about people who are expected to die. And that's typically they go to a hospice program. And so I started working for I moved to New York, got my master's degree in gerontology, which is the study of aging, and thanatology, which is the study of death and dying. And then I started working for the Visiting Nurse Service Hospice Care, and I managed their volunteer programs for 15 years. And that meant training people, lay people like ourselves, not nurses or social workers, chaplains, home health aides. Those were all the other staff. But I trained the volunteers who would go out, and regular people going out and being with the patients at the bedside, and essentially being companions and visitors and doulas to people who were dying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
One of the main questions I always got about it was, gosh, isn't that hard, or isn't that sad work? And the answer was always a resounding no, because it was hard for the people who were doing it, like the patient. It was hard for the family who was losing someone. But for those of us who were in the supportive roles and got to witness and be a part of it, it was incredibly sacred and rewarding. And, what better way to spend your time than, figuring out how to bring comfort and care to people who were facing impending loss and of, the most epic proportions we can face them in life, which is, our own mortality.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, to me, that's just an act of just such love to do that. So that's amazing, Taren.
Well, I always felt like I was surrounded by people who I loved and who, like, I always felt so cared for that I'd go into the office, and even though, the hardest part about any nonprofit healthcare job is the paperwork. Maybe not this year for most healthcare workers, but before that, it's like if you don't write it down, it didn't happen. Yeah. So the actual love and care that people provided at the bedside, like, these were my colleagues every day, and these were the most loving, present, weird, quirky New Yorkers that I always wanted to hang out and be with. So I loved working there. And it's the death conversation is also one that it's taboo. We don't talk about it. It's impolite. All these like cultural things that we've mostly gotten over, and that we're less shy about talking about now, I actually find really relevant in coaching conversations, because how we view death is how we view life. And what we fear in life always comes back to what we think life means and what we make life means, and how we view our own death and the meaning of loss is not, it's not just part of that, but it actually defines that. One of the best books about this is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And it's one that I always recommend with my clients. It's like, here's a man who survived Nazi concentration camps and came out and, continued to develop his own psychotherapy style for dealing with life, death, loss, and the meaning that we make of it. And his take on it was always, you have to create the meaning out of your experience of suffering. And this is the thing, the one true act of will that all human beings have, is to choose one's attitude in the face of any circumstance. And, his life was so extraordinary because he faced unimaginable circumstances and then said these words and lived by this. So, if this man can do it, he shows us what's truly possible. And it's his work and the way he frames all of it is, it's really meaningful to me. And I find that people want to talk about it.
Yeah. So you mentioned coaching there. What led you from this sort of work into becoming a professional coach?
I'd been doing hospice for so many years that while I loved it, I was craving more for myself and new challenges. And then I met about 5 people who were coaches and got interested in that. And then I went and got trained as a coach. Mm-hmm. And I like to think of it as that I used to counsel people into helping others have a good death. And now I get to help people prepare for that eventuality by helping them create for themselves a great life. And that includes, everything in life from, relationships and money and business and kids and creativity and working with big companies and having improv and team building events and things like that. Like, what makes life great, right? It's the experiences that we get to have over time. And coaching is just a great way to help people create the experience they want of life.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's your what's an ideal client look like for you, Taren? Who do you enjoy most working with?
God. Wow. It's a good question. My ideal client is someone who is absolutely hungry and eager for more.
Yeah.
And and from there, like, it doesn't matter what they do, or like, I tend to work with more women, but it's really about the level of willingness someone has to want more and go bigger. And that's the key for everything is willingness. And if they come to the plate over and over and over and over again, then that's just fun for them, fun for me. And that's my wish for every human being, is that everybody wants more for themselves.
Yeah.
I think people we can spend a lot of time, not necessarily settling, but, tricking ourselves into, well, it's good enough. And I'm going to spend a lot of time figuring out how to just be with what I have. And even, Jason, it's kind of weird because people focus on gratitude in that way. Like, I'm just going to be grateful for what I have.
Yeah.
And I think even something like gratitude can get co-opted in a way that has us justifying not going for even more, of having even more of the things that we want. And so people who dare to dream and want and have more, and I don't mean even the accumulation of stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, when I say more, I mean like the broader experience of what they have and the deepness.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Taren.
And and I'm, it's, if I could say anything, about like this year and what this year has meant for me and what I see for other people, is that like going deeper into this, like, letting go of stuff, that when things are seemingly taken away by the world, that's actually a time that we get to look at what we already have. And I see that it's hard for people to be with themselves.
Yeah.
But what I know about hospice and what I learned is, like, we're born in this world alone and we leave this world alone. And so making really good friends with ourselves on deeper and deeper levels is never a bad idea.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, now is the time of the show where I get to grant you your wish.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to hand you the host mic, and you can rename the show for the next few minutes if you want to.
Okay.
You can create a spite podcast here, So this is the part where you, Taren, get to ask me anything that you'd like to hear from me. And whether or not you think the audience would think it's interesting, you get to ask me and I will pretty much answer it within reason. So what do you got for me? What do you want me to answer for you and for the audience?
Okay. I'm wondering why you are so obsessed with Hugh Jackman.
Wait, what? I'm learning something new about myself today.
You're welcome, Jason.
Oh my God, I really want to know where this is coming from because I'm actually not obsessed with Hugh Jackman. I like Hugh Jackman. I think he's an entertaining guy. I think he's a good actor.
Jason, didn't I teach you anything about improv? Anything about improv at all?
You want to do a little improv scene right now?
Oh,
okay. Sorry. It's Monday. I didn't pick up what you're laying down.
Hugh Jackman. There is no such thing as Hugh Jackman. That's not a flower.
I'm sure the audience is like, please no, God no, please bad improv, and the bad improv's coming from me on air. Like, please God no.
Actually, here's what I know. Like, what is it like to be a dad?
Oh yeah, good question. Well, I've shared this recently. I'm a second-time dad as of 8 weeks ago on Friday. So we actually had a coronial baby. Yes, that's a term that my friend told me, coronial, which I find really funny. So what is it like to be a dad? So yeah, we have 2 children now. I have a almost 5-year-old daughter and we have an 8-week-old son. What is it like to be a dad? Depends on the day. I think it's a similar answer to what's it like to be dating or engaged or living with somebody or married to somebody. Some days it's really great. Other days you're like, what am I doing? But most of the time it's pretty cool. I think it's an interesting experience, and I'm gonna relate this back to kind of my experience of the last 8 weeks specifically, because as your children grow, and now that our daughter's almost 5, you kind of see them go from like baby, walking, talking a little bit, to toddler, to kind of like, oh, this is like a real human being with thoughts and feelings and emotions and a lot of opinions. And so you start to get used to the idea like, oh, she can get herself a snack and she's good at like saying what she wants, right? So like a little human being. And then you bring a brand new baby into the world and you're like, oh, I forgot that this is ever what it was like, where this kid is just, all he wants is to drink milk, poop, and sleep. And can't do anything by himself. Nothing. So what it's like to be a dad right now is
it sounds like the last relationship I was in.
Eat, poop, and sleep. Sounds
can't do anything for himself.
Yeah. You're like, yes, I can relate to being around an infant. I dated one, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. You need to dump that kid.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just not working out for us. I'll give him another month maybe to see if we can turn this around, but I feel like he's not committed. It feels like a real giving. It feels like a lot of giving on my side and not a lot of taking. There's not a lot of he's giving me right now. But what it's like to be a dad is moments of incredible proudness, and as especially as our daughter gets older, as you start to see like, oh, there's me, and that's both the really fun thing and a really scary thing. You're like, oh, there's me, and that is a part of me that I don't like, and there it is. And then like, oh, there's me, and there's the part of me that I really admire about myself, and so that part is super cool. Incredible proudness. There's also an element of the kids are young, so we haven't really reached like the, oh crap, here comes some of the stuff that you always like see on sitcoms of like, oh, the daughter's a teenager and now there's boys around. Like, we don't really have that yet, but you do start to think about, you're starting to see the personality. You're like, oh, this is going to be interesting in a few years. This is going to be interesting when she's 12 or 13. So it's not like a stress, but it's I guess I do a little bit of projecting what might be the case in the future, which is just unhealthy in my opinion. And there's that. And then we have a ton of fun. It's really fun. So like last night we played Go Fish. We played this other new game we just got. It was super fun because she's at the age where she can actually do this stuff. So it's like almost like you start to have, obviously they'll always be your kid first, but you start to have another friend in the house, kind of like your partner should be like the person you love and you're with, but also your friend, it's like, hey, there's another person to play games with, or like play Spider-Man on video games. And like, she wants to just hold the controller and like move Spider-Man around like that. For me is really, really fun.
Yeah.
And so
I wouldn't let her beat you and go fish, because
she beat me twice on her own yesterday.
Oh, Jason, that's not good. That's not good. You need to let her know. They teach her about losing early, and go fish is a low stakes place for them to learn that. So
I know.
If you need parenting,
I think I need some parenting coaching right now. I mean, and total transparency, we played last night. At least she played last night. And she beat me fair and square twice. Like, she seriously did. Like, go fish. Oh. It's kind of hard to do anything with it other than you get the cards and then you either do it. She beat me fair and square. I did. And then her and my wife teamed up against me. We played against, I played against my wife and her in this fun little games called, I think it's called Bacala or something, where you just like move these little glass pieces around. And I did beat them. And she was a pretty gracious loser, but I will say I am extremely competitive and my wife is extremely competitive. And our daughter is extremely competitive. She does not like to lose in anything. So that is the part of that you're like, oh, there's me, and that's great. And there's me, and that's frightening. So
did you call your daughter a gracious little loser? Did you just say that?
No, I did not. I did not.
Okay. That was the book title. That's gracious what you loser. Said. She was great. That's the greatest title for a book. Like, teaching your children about winning and losing. A gracious little loser.
Yeah, I'm going to let you write that book. That's an amazing title. Hey, I'm not going to write the book. I'm just going to tell her.
You are to have me on this.
I am. I'm just going to say, hey, Taren told me to call you a gracious little loser. I'm going to go
buy that domain.
Gracious little loser. It's like Big Little Lies, Little Fires Everywhere. Gracious little loser. Uh-huh. It's a new Reese Witherspoon project that's coming out soon.
Gracious I'm on her podcast.
Amazing.
I'm gonna be on her podcast at 4:00 today. So
Reese's? That's perfect.
Tell her I said hi. And see if she likes
tell her
it.
I said hi. Yeah, she can maybe cast you in there. At least be the lead writer. Good question though. I like talking about parenting, and I'm not gonna be like, it's all perfect. I love every minute of it. I love fighting at bedtime or fighting to get her for school. It's my favorite thing in the world. No, it's not. I don't like it. I will be very clear. I don't like some of it, but I love her. Love our son, and overall, it's pretty awesome. And I just want to wrap with this. Going back to this year. We've become much closer as a family because we had our daughter with us every minute of every day, not that I'm counting, from March 12th until September 8th when she went off to school in person again. So for every day, all day, we were all together in the house. And let me tell you what is not fun. Zoom school for a 4-year-old. Not fun. You think adults get bored of Zoom? Imagine being 4. And it was only 3 hours a day. And the teachers did a great job, but it just wasn't. I felt bad for her. She's like, I don't like this. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't like it either. I'm 4 years old. You know what? Like 4-year-olds want to go and play with their friends and do coloring and play games and go to the playground. And it's like they're staring at a screen for 3 hours. So we had some challenges with that. But we've definitely had a lot of bonding time with her. And it's been fun to see her grow as we've spent a lot more time with her over the last, it was, March till September. So like 7 months. Well, that's my answer. Or maybe it's 5 months. I don't know. That's my answer for you. All right. I'm taking your spite podcast back. I'm back. I'm in charge again. You are now responsible to me and the questions I want to ask.
Very well. Very well. I will say that's it's, I've known you for a little while and it's been really beautiful to hear about your stories as dad. And I don't have kids. I have 2 dogs. So I'm aware that children are a slightly higher commitment.
Yeah.
Well,
can't lock them in a kennel. Babies. That's true.
But I admire your pathway as a father, and I'm happy for you and
Thank you.
Your 2020 accomplishment.
2020 addition to the world that isn't a pandemic. There you go. Awesome. All right. So, Taren, what are you passionate about?
The answer, I did prepare for this question, Jason,
Yeah.
and the answer I came up with was Novak Djokovic.
Yep.
And it's a very specific answer, but I've been a fan of Novak Djokovic for about 15, I don't know, ever since he came on the scene in tennis. For those of you who don't know Novak, he's number one in the world, and I feel like I watched him grow up. Him being a really kind of arrogant, snotty, talented, but hot-headed kid on the court.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen him twice in person. And
not on the tennis court. You just seen him in real life.
At the U.S. Open.
Oh, gotcha. Sure.
In Queens.
Yep.
He is watching his journey, watching him grow up to embody a champion mindset and really become a champion. I can tell he relates to himself as a champion and carries himself as one. It's always been fascinating to me. And this year was especially fascinating because he didn't act like a champion.
No, he didn't.
He got himself into trouble. And I'll share with the audience what happened if they're not tennis fans. He was getting frustrated during a match, and a big disqualifying no is to, angrily hit a ball on the court. And if you do, and it hits someone, you're automatically disqualified, not from the game, but from the entire tournament. And he started getting upset, and he batted a ball, not even very hard, not even aiming at anything. And he hit a judge in the throat, a line judge in the throat. And he got disqualified and had a real chance at winning the entire thing.
Yeah.
And what it really showed is that he let his frustration overtake him, and he wasn't able to in the moment, as we say as coaches, like get complete and move on. Like he wasn't able to work himself out and then keep focused on the match. He let his emotion, and then he acted out from there. And there was a big consequence this time to that behavior. And that to me is always an interesting thing, because we can always in life allow powerful emotions to suddenly overtake us. And if we act out of that, there are sometimes big consequences to a choice, one choice that we make from that place. And to watch somebody at his level have to suffer those consequences at that level in front of the world, he handled it with a lot of humility and learned from it. And I think in the way he handled it was also the way a champion would handle a humiliating experience like that. He actually handled a humiliating experience with an equal amount of humility. And that kind of goes back to why I love working with fearful adults, because if you are afraid of being humiliated in public speaking, or being humiliated in business, or failing at something, the antidote for that fear is humility. Because what makes us fearless in life is being able to live life as it comes and humbly accepting both ourselves, others, circumstances on a level that where, you don't have to protect or defend or, yourself or what happened. It's actually humility is a great way of counteracting the potential humiliations of life. So that's what I saw he did. And it was disappointing because, I wanted him to win. He's my guy. But actually watching how it all played out, and the final ended up being 5 matches between 2 other champions, that was just as satisfying.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I would say I'm passionate about humiliation.
Humiliation. There it is. All that. I'm passionate about watching people humiliate themselves. Perfect. Which is the perfect answer for somebody who is an improv person. Is like, I'm passionate about getting up and watching people do really silly things and then watching them recover from it.
Yeah. Oh my God. When I first started doing improv, I would go and do a show and then walk home and cry walking home rather.
Yeah.
And I was humiliated. I was like, I'm never going back. Yeah. And then I'd be there the next night and try again. Exactly. And then I did anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. So next question for you is, what's the thing, Taren, that you are most proud of? And I'm not going to caveat it any further than that. What's the thing that you're most proud of?
This year, something I'm proud of this year is that I reinvented how I do exercise. Mm-hmm. And I actually, they shut down all yoga, they shut down all Pilates, they shut down all the things that I had always relied on for to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And back in April, I was like, well, I got to figure this out because I got to exercise and so I took on doing HIIT and Tabata workouts.
Yeah, totally.
And I do those at home, and I never thought I would do a burpee, Jason.
Oh, burpees are the worst.
I thought burpees are just something I'll never do. Burpees are for suckers. And I had to be willing to do whatever it took to feel good in my body at home over the course of the year. And man, I'm a burpee head now. I'm a HIIT person. I do crazy jumps and I just change it all up. And I always thought no, it's always going to be yoga and Pilates. And it's not. So, necessity is the mother of invention. And, it was necessary to change all that up. So I'm really proud. I'm fitter than ever. I'm healthier. COVID here has been great for my health.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually at my lowest weight since college. Because I've been exercising a ton and I've been eating at home, and I'm super guilty of seamless living in the city. We're not currently living there, but all that. So I'm with you. I'm in fantastic shape right now. And I'm like, no, it's funny because people are like, oh, I either put on a bunch of weight or I feel like I've lost weight. So it's good to hear that you and I are on the, I've never felt better in my body at the ripe old age of, I just turned 43 in November. So I'm stronger and more flexible than I was when I was 25, which is pretty cool. Sounds like you're there too. And we won't ask for your age, Taren, because that is not polite to do to women. So I'm not going to do
that. Wow. Well, now I'm 67. So
exactly. Just 67. And you're just entering your first bodybuilding competition.
Yeah, you should be jealous of my Social Security. I don't know why you're not asking. You
got that extra money flowing in. Now you can just use it on more personal training. It's perfect. All right. We're going to start to wrap up here as we get near the top of the hour, but I actually have what I called my vulnerability question, which I think you'll be down for. So I'm curious, Taren, what is something that you are afraid might actually be true about you?
Oh, I think all human beings are capable of astounding feats of transformation and breakthrough. Like we are capable of unimaginable acts of love and courage. And at the same time, I think people are capable of doing things like Djokovic in a moment that are irreparable or from a very low state of consciousness.
Yeah.
And so I think if I were to say the thing I like, it's that, oh gosh, like to give an example, like I just shared this with somebody recently, that I once almost stabbed a girl with a pencil on the subway.
What?
Like this was 20 years ago. I was on a subway train in Brooklyn, and I was on the train alone writing in a journal, and this woman and this guy got on and crowded me, and they were being really rude about it, and I had my pencil ready. And at one point they kept crowding, and I was like, why are they so close to me? And they were crowding me and giving me dirty looks, and I gave them an elbow, and I had that pencil ready to go. And I was like, I'm sitting there, and I really realized what I was thinking. I was like,
wow,
I'm sitting here ready to go with a pencil on a stranger. I'm so angry and upset in this moment.
Yeah.
And that to me was this wake up call, like, oh my God, I'm capable of an act of violence that I never thought I would be capable of. And I got off that train. That train.
So that tells me you still have your sanity, where you're like, oh wait, I want to offer something, and I forget who told me this, and this is something Brene Brown said, and I don't know if it's in one of her books or something on her podcast, but she said something along the lines of, and this is obviously just her opinion, but the great fallacy of us as human beings is we consider ourselves thinking creatures who sometimes feel, but her hypothesis is we're actually just feeling creatures who sometimes think. And for me, when emotions are, I mean, Brene, that's Brene. When you think about it, and that's for me personally, even people are like super logical, a lot of time that logic is on top of feelings of like being right or like can't show emotion. So I think that's the thing to remember is, first of all, it's human. Like, and like there's something that triggers. The triggers, we all have those things that are huge triggers for us. And it sounds like for you, like there's a space thing, or when people treat you like that. And I'm glad you didn't actually do that, because we might be recording this from prison. You're like, you have 5 minutes left, Taren. Please hang up the phone.
Please deposit 25 more cents. Well, and I'm reminded of the story. I was talking to a client who was dealing with a lot of anger. So we were talking about it and how she didn't want to do something that she would regret. And it triggered my memory of this moment where I realized that, wow, I'm so angry. I could do something that I really regret, and made me think of Djokovic and the ball thing, and that he regretted that. So, with vulnerability, it's like, wow, man, we are capable of such beautiful, incomprehensible acts of love. And, when, like, especially something like this year, when there's a lot of fear outside there, we also need to watch for ourselves and each other, so that when we are in that much fear and pain and feeling that much vulnerability, that we don't take actions from that place. We actually feel the vulnerability and feel it out without acting on it, because we always end up coming back to the higher version of ourselves.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Taren. Again, I want to thank you. It was so good to finally make this happen. We've been talking about it for way too long. We did it. So as we start to wrap up today, we got a few minutes left. I want to ask you, first of all, if there's anything you'd like to leave the audience with in terms of sharing with them. And second, where can the audience connect with you and find you?
Yeah, well, more importantly, they can find The Wire on HBO.
On HBO Max, $14.99 a month. This episode sponsored by HBO Max by Time Warner.
Yes. So please go do that first. And then if you're interested in getting in touch with me or learning more about me, I'm at bigtimecoaching.com.
There it is, bigtimecoaching.com. I believe you're on LinkedIn, all the places.
All the places.
Definitely connect with Taren. Awesome, Taren. So last thing for you, tradition on the show, is I love to have my guests leave myself and the audience with words to wisdom. And the words of wisdom need to fit on a Post-it note. In other words, keep it short. What do you got for us? I've said that, and most of my episodes, people are like counseling, and every now and then they're like, all right, I'm going to keep it short, and then they do like a paragraph. I'm like, that's not what we're looking for here, but okay.
I would say you can relax.
Is that for me or for the audience? Because I can definitely use that advice. You're like, bro, just chill. Seriously.
That's it. If I had to add one more phrase, it would be let it go. But relax and let it go. Relax and let it go.
Relax and let it go.
Yep.
Taren, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pleasure to connect with you. I'm sure we'll be speaking very soon. Best of luck to everything you're up to out there in the world, staying safe and healthy and getting ripped in the age of COVID. I mean, by ripped, I mean muscularly, not maybe you're getting ripped alcohol. I don't know. That'd be a different conversation, but getting ripped. Maybe you're McNulting it up on the weekends. I don't know.
Well, thanks for being the Kima to my McNulty.
Oh, there it is. I love it. By the way, I have to end with this since we started with The Wire. I'm going to end with The Wire. I was watching Fargo, the latest season on FX. I don't know if you watch Fargo, but there was a character and I'm like,
I do. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Did you see Dr. Senator? I'm like, who is that? I'm like, oh, that's Mayor. That's the African-American mayor from The Wire. I forget his name. I remember Carcetti was the new mayor, but the original African-American mayor, I'm like, that's that guy. And I also saw Lester on something recently too. Oh, you know what he's in? He's in The Five Bloods, the Spike Lee movie on Netflix. Lester's in there. And another character from The Wire's on there too.
Yeah, the Wire is everywhere, Jason.
The Wire is everywhere. We're going to leave you with that today. The Wire is everywhere. Thank you so much, Taren, and I will connect with you soon.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and give us a shout out, or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.